Good afternoon, Paul. It's Monday, the 25th September. Here's the heads up brief for today.
Okay, excellent, mate. Go ahead. It's good to be back after I've been infested with a horrible cold. Please go ahead.
Right.
How much production was there today?
Right. For the Southeast Asia production, we covered 25 issues. In North Asia, we covered six. And for Australasia and the Pacific Islands, we covered 10. In South Asia, we
Okay,
covered 21 issues, plus the major issues in Europe, Middle East, and Africa.
great. Thanks. Go ahead.
Right. So first things first, Paul, for Indonesia, Kaisang Pangarep, the youngest son of President Jokowi, officially became a formal member of the Indonesian Solidarity Party. Now, the PSI, the Indonesian Solidarity Party, is apparently supporting Prabowo in the 2024 presidential elections. So it seems that Jokowi may indeed back Prabowo and move away from PDIP.
Well, it's even better than that. I mean, PDIP and who they look like they're going to back, and Megawati's involvement and Jokowi's son joining politics. It all on the surface is interesting, but when you dig deep behind that, it reeks of everybody that gets into politics gets power for money, for future wealth. Nobody, despite Jokowi's polishing a beautiful pie, he's actually pouring rancidity all over that pie. It's horrible to see the way Indonesians, particularly the Javanese in central power vaults, continue to abuse that nation for their own gain. I'd like us to do an audio brief on this Tuesday week. I'd like somebody to start preparing the toxicity of power plays and people using politics and political parties for their own gain, focusing on where Jokowi's going, how people change allegiances between political parties, how people subdue future leaders and ask them to join as their running mate, and how it all ultimately is focused on money. Because our clients need to understand Indonesia beyond this rhetoric, beyond this gloss that's so-called, the most shining new democracy. It's all a load of toxic bollocks. So let's have the analysts look at that with little less emotional words and some objectivity and research effort. But let's expose that to ensure that our clients understand what Indonesia is, because if you're investing in the country or if you're invested there, you need to mitigate your risks. You need to understand the field in which you've elected or been forced to play, okay?
Right, Paul, we'll get the team on it and we'll get an audio discussion next week on this. Right. So in Myanmar, according to local sources, the military has started arming civilian fighters to oppose the resistance groups. Nearly 200 locals in the Bago region were armed by the military with rifles, and the military is planning to continue the same strategy in parts of Shan State over the coming days.
Well, look, I mean, and in theory, from the military's perspective, that sounds all good and honky-dory. The reality is, in the Shan State, you've got some serious players up there. The Wa State Army, for instance, operates out of there. And at some point, those weapons are going to be gifted to the ethnic armed organisations that are infinitely better at fighting than the army, and certainly more capable at fighting than these half-witted border forces that think they're some kind of military force. The armies, it's a desperation move by the military. It's only going to actually help their adversity, the People's Defence Forces and the ethnic armed organisations, and it's yet another tick in the box for we are ignorant, we are stupid, and we're losing control. Yep. All right, go on.
Right. And in the Solomon Islands, Prime Minister Manasseh Sogavare has refused to meet the US President Joe Biden at the Pacific Island Summit in Washington, D.C. this week. This is as the Solomon Islands has been getting closer to China in the last few months.
Oh, look at the bright side. Joe Biden can ring Australia. Australia can send Penny Wong. She can fly in the morning, have a meeting for an hour and fly back in the afternoon and think it's all amended. When you decide to pull out of Asia and pull out of the Pacific, and when it suits you, pull back and then go off to the sandpit in Afghanistan and then come back again, at some point, people, you lose confidence. So really, America's got to deal with its own inadequacies when it comes to thinking it can just tell everybody when it needs to be worshipped again. Speaking of which, and I know it's not in the Asia Pacific, but on the Ukraine side of it, I noticed several American academics, of course, Mearsheimer, but also Sachs and also Stephen Walt. Though they're academics, they've got a lot more vested in the Ukraine situation than just book knowledge. Can we get our guys, perhaps by Wednesday, to give a brief on the Ukraine? I'd like to see particularly what Sachs has come out recently. He's been very vocal. I'm very familiar with Mearsheimer, but I'd also like an update on where Stephen Walt's sitting and very much on where Sachs is sitting, and make sure that our clients look at what are their vested interests, make sure we remove their bias, make sure that we are seeing things objectively, and basically rate. I know we've done Mearsheimer before, but Stephen Walden and Sachs to make sure that we're getting a balanced view on where they believe Ukraine's at, the background of Nazi supportism. There was recently been a high-profile glitch in the Canadian Parliament where they worshipped an SS fighter. So can you get someone to prepare that?
Right.
Let's do that brief Wednesday afternoon, okay?
Yeah, Paul, I'll get the team on it.
Thank you.
Yeah. In South Asia and India, around 400 additional border security force and Central Reserve Police Force personnel were deployed to Manipur over the weekend. There's still insecurity across the state since the violence broke out in May, with the police continuing to arm ethnic groups, and the police's arming of ethnic groups has been hindering the security forces' ability to resolve the violence.
Well, unfortunately, the police are hopefully a part of the security force. So you're saying that the military and the police are at odds there. The police are doing their own thing, and they're operating at a level commensurate with the mindless arming of many countries that America specialises in the name of democracy and their values being superior. And they're right up there with the Myanmar junta in terms of understanding how to win security, and that's certainly not by thinking that you chuck some weapons around and then it's going to help your cause. Okay, got it.
And in Bangladesh, Paul, 2 Hindu temples were vandalized on the outskirts of Dhaka over the weekend. We could see an increase of religious motivated attacks in the coming weeks ahead of the January elections, given the presence of hardline Islamists and a polarized election environment in Bangladesh.
Okay, thank you.
In the Europe, Middle East, and Africa region, regarding Armenia, Azerbaijan, ethnic Armenians began a mass exodus towards Armenia yesterday. This comes after Azerbaijan launched a special military operation in the Karabakh region last week. The ethnic Armenians refuse to be integrated into Azerbaijani society as they fear Azerbaijan's planned assimilation of their populations.
Look, it's very interesting to now see that Azerbaijan's basically just saying all we need to have a peace thing is that the Armenian ethnic groups are not armed and call peace. So in other words, just do everything our way and then we can have a peace agreement. And it's totally in conflict with any reality. So, I mean, we can expect that that's going to escalate. I notice our smarter clients have already banned all travel there. I know we're doing a brief on it, I think it's tomorrow or Thursday, I can't recall, but thanks for the update.
Yeah. In the United Kingdom, thousands of protesters protested in London on the weekend against Brexit. They're calling for the British government to rejoin the European Union, and they are also calling upon Rishi Sunak's government to resign.
Okay, and pigs can fly. I mean, I can't imagine how on earth they think that either of those are going to be taken seriously. I would like to get a little bit more understanding of exactly where those protests were and the number of people. So get somebody to map that out, do some graphics so I can have a good look at it. Okay?
Yeah, sure, Paul. We'll get the team on it. And lastly, in Niger, French President Emmanuel Macron said that France will pull out all of its 1,500 troops and diplomatic staff from Niger. The soldiers will exit by the end of the year. The diplomatic staff are being pulled out as we speak. This is as Niger's military regime has banned French aircraft from flying over the country's airspace without authorization, and as Niger has invited the Wagner Group to the country for security, which is a trend in West Africa at the moment.
Okay, well, that's very interesting indeed. And one would like to think that there's possibly a lesson in that for the French in how you have acted as a colonial power, but I very much doubt amidst the wine and cheese and the desire to do nothing but drain resources that any lessons shall be heeded. It's an unfortunate trend for the long-term security paradigm, but it's probably a necessary part of the revolution. All right, thanks very much.
That's a brief for today, Paul. Anything else from you?
No, cheers.
Thanks.